Hmm. Good morning. Shabbat shalom. Yeah, a book would be good. And yeah, there's two papers out there. A book and two papers. So this is going okay last night. Ooh, here we are. So I know normally in the before times, we would do this service in a circle on the floor. But I don't, I mean, Janine's here, she can weigh in too, but I don't think we're quite there yet, especially if we want my mask off. So I'm gonna stay here. I'm gonna come down to here for Torah, and otherwise you stay there. Sit, stand. Isn't it so comfortable? Good morning. So I didn't remember, I'm hoping I didn't put a waiting room on the Zoom. I've been remembering to take it off because I don't want to have to be clicking people in. But nobody came yet, so I don't know. I don't know. Oh, how's everybody doing? I just came from water. I'm great. You feel great. Everybody came out in the gray weather. I love it. Hallelujah. Oh, how about a prayer book? Well, good morning. It's wonderful to see all of you. If you were here last night, you will remember that we had a theme going about what it means to create a home and what it means to be hospitable to others. Rabbi David focused on the beginning of Parshat Chayei Sarah when Abraham buys the Cave of Machpelah. This morning, we're actually going to focus on a completely different part of the Torah portion that contains the same message, which is so interesting, which you'll find out more about later.
I have a question about this.
Sure.
When he was giving his sermon, he was talking about he wanted this lion to bury her. Does she ever get married? It never says.
In the portion?
Yes.
Ooh, I would have to look that detail up for you.
Yeah,
Maybe we can do that after. I'm pretty sure, yeah.
I think that's the case.
I think it's,
Because he talked about it being patriarchs and matriarchs, so even though matriarchs are mentioned. I mean, I think so.
I would assume so, but it doesn't say it.
I think like in my memory, I think it's in this Torah portion, but it's not in front of me, so I can't promise, but we'll look it up to be sure.
Okay.
But yeah, good question. Cliffhanger, did it ever happen?
It never happened.
Yes. So I think most or everybody in here has studied a little bit of mindfulness with me, and how can we be hospitable if we don't make the room inside first to welcome others in? So our opening song, same as last night, Sanctuary, is all about not a physical sanctuary, but how do we make ourselves into sanctuaries for others to make them more comfortable. Lord, prepare me to be a sanctuary, pure and holy, tried and true, with thanksgiving. I'll be a living sanctuary for you. Lord, prepare me to be a sanctuary, pure and holy, tried and true, with thanksgiving. I'll be a living sanctuary for you. So I want to say welcome again, welcome and welcome back to Musical Minyan. When I look back, I saw that we have not done this service for almost a year and haven't done it in person for I have no idea how long. I remember very clearly being in a beautiful circle down here on the floor with a beautiful number of people, but a couple of years ago at this point. So just as a reminder, we're basically going to sing ourselves through the service. I will definitely do my very best to let you know what page we're on, but we are going to enjoy our prayer time this morning in the form of song and chant. And I invite you to just relax into that. Don't stress about whether you know all the words or whether you're in the right place. You know, music can be about singing yourself. It can be about listening. It can be about humming and just experiencing our spirituality through music this morning. We're going to begin on page 192 of the prayer book with Matovu. How beautiful are your tents, O Jacob, your dwelling places, O Israel. We continue now on page 194 with our prayer of gratitude for our bodies. And this setting of this prayer starts on the third line of the Hebrew, not the beginning. את האדם בחוכמה וברבו נקבים נקבים חלולים חלולים גלוי בידוע לפני כיסא כבודך שאם יפתח אחד מהם או יסתר אחד מהם יחשי להתקיים ולעמוד לפניך ברוך אתה אדוני רופא ובשר ומפליא לעשות. On page 196, Elohai Neshama. Elohai, Elohai, Neshama. שנתת בי טהורי. Elohai. Elohai, Elohai, Neshama, שנתת בי טהורי. אתה בראת, אתה יצרת, אתה נפחת בי. ואתה משמרה בגיבי. אלוהי, אלוהי, נשמה, שנתת בי On page 198, we'll continue with the miracles of every day. This is a list of big and small miracles that we experience every day that continues on the next 3 pages. And we will be chanting them in Hebrew and in English. So beginning just with the first 2 lines of the Hebrew and then switching into the last line of the English. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who has given the mind the ability to distinguish day from night. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who opens the eyes of the blind. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who frees the captive. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who lifts up the fallen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who stretches the earth over the waters. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who strengthens our steps. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who clothes the naked. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who gives strength to the weary. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who removes sleep from the eyes, slumber from the eyelids. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who made me in the image of God. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who has made me free. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who has made me a Jew. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who girds Israel with strength. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who crowns Israel with splendor. We continue on page 218 with Psalm 150, Hallelujah, a psalm about praising God with all of the parts of ourselves through the analogy of music. Hallelujah, 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 We continue now with the Chatzi Kaddish on page 224. Yitgadol v'yikadash shemei Rabbah, Belmadi berach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon u'vyomechon u'v'chayei dechol beit Yisrael, bagala bagala u'vizman kariv, Ve'yimeru, Amen. Yehi Shemei Rabba Mevorach, Le'olam Olam Me'amaya, Yitzbarach. Yiparach v'yishabach, v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yithadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal, shemei dekudsha v'richu, le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, ta'amiran belma, ve'imeru, amen. Before we continue with the Baruch Hu, I'm going to share a short reading from the prayer book. You don't need to bother turning the page, you can just listen. But the funny thing is that the reading I picked originally is the exact same reading the rabbi picked to reflect our theme last night, which I thought was super cool. So I'm gonna pick a different one that also reflects on our theme of hospitality. There are days when we seek things for ourselves and measure failure by what we do not gain. On Shabbat, we seek not to acquire, but to share. There are days when we exploit nature as if it were a horn of plenty that can never be exhausted. On Shabbat, we stand in wonder before the mystery of creation. There are days when we act as if we cared nothing for the rights of others. On Shabbat, we remember that justice is our duty and a better world our goal. So we embrace Shabbat, day of rest, day of wonder, day of peace. We rise for the Baruch Hu on page 226. Page 228, we continue in the Hebrew. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, yotzer or uvorei choshech, oseh shalom uvorei et hakol, hameir la'aretz veladarim aleha berachamim, uvtuvo mechadesh b'chol yom, tamid ma'aseh v'reishit. Ma rabu ma'asecha Adonai, kulam bechochma asita, mal'ah ha'aretz kinyanecha, titbarach Adonai Eloheinu, al shevach ma'aseh yadecha, ve'al me'orei or she'asita yefa'arufa sela, or chadash al tzion ta'ir, v'nizkech hulanu mehera le'oro, baruch atah Adonai, yotzer ha'me'orot. Page 230. Ahavtanu Adonai Eloheinu Hanagedola V'tera Hamota Aleinu וטעין בליבנו להבין ולהשכיל, לשמוע, ללמוד וללמד, לשמור ולעשות ולקיים את כל דברי תלמוד תורתך באהבה. Second paragraph on page 230. ואבינו לשלום בכנפות הארץ, ותוליכנו חמיר לארצנו, כי אל פה ישועות אתה, ובאנו בחרת בקרבתנו לשמך הגדול סלע באמת, להודות לך ולייחדך באהבה. ברוך אתה אדוני, הבוחר במו ישראל באהבה. שמע ישראל, אדוני אלוהינו, אדוני אחד. ברוך שכבוד מלכותו לעולם ועד. Please be seated. We continue with the Ve'ahavta on page 234. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavecha ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך, ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך, ובלכתך בדרך, ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם. Page 237 at the top. If people fall, can they not also rise? If they break away, can they not return? The stork in the sky knows when to migrate. The dove and the swallow know the season of return. What human instinct knows the time to turn back? What cue sparks the conscience of the soul? We pray to sense this day anew, attuned to the call of sacred living. Micha Mocha, page 240. Yisrael, ufdei chinumecha Yehuda veYisrael. Oh, Aleinu, Adonai Tzevaot Shemo, Kedosh Yisrael, Baruch Atah Adonai, Ba'al Yisrael. We rise for the tefillah on page 242. Adonai, Siftai Tivta, Ufi Agid Ilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. Yalla la la la, 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 yalla la la la. Yalla la la la, yalla la la la. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu v'Imoteinu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, v'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, v'Elohei Leah. Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'Konei Hakol, V'Zocher Chastevot V'Imachot, U'Mevi Geula Livnei V'Neicham, Lama'an Shemo Be'ahava, Melech Ozer U'Moshia U'Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magin Avraham, Bezrat Sarah, Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai, Mechaye HaKol Atah Rav LeHoshia, Mechakel Chayim Bechesed, Mechaye HaKol Berachamim Rabim, Somech Noflim Verofei Cholim, Umatir Hasurim, Umkayim Emunato, Lishenei Afar, Micha Mocha Baal Gevurot, Umido Melach, Melech Mimit, Umchaya, Umatzmiach Yeshua. Ben emanata lahachayotako, Baruch atah Adonai, mechaye hakol. Nekadesh et shimcha ba'olam, Kishem shemati shimo tov b'shmei maro, hakatuv al yad nevi'echa, v'korah ze al ze ve'amar, Kadosh, 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 Adonai Tzevaot, Melo kol haaretz, Kevodo. Adir, Adirenu, Adonai, Adonenu, Madir Shimchor Chol Haaretz, Baruch Kevod Adonai Mimchalot. Echad hu Eloheinu, hu Avinu Malkeinu, Moshienu v'hu Yashmienu, Berachamav le'nei kol לדור ודור. הללויה. לדור ודור נגיד גודלך, ולנצח נצחים קדושתך נקדיש, ושבחך אלוהינו מפינו לא ימוש לעולם האל. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש. You may be seated. We continue on page 250 with Yismachu. Yismachu b'malachutah, Yismachu b'malachutah, Shomrei Shabbat, Shomrei Shabbat, Shomrei Onek Shabbat, Yismachu b'malachutah, Yismachu b'malachutah, Shomrei Shabbat, Shomrei Shabbat, Shomrei Onek Shabbat. We continue now individually, silently in our prayer books for pages 252 through 258. And we will join back together at 258. Sim Shalom Tova Uvracha Sim Shalom Tova Uvracha Sim Shalom Tova Uvracha Sim Shalom Tova Uvracha Chayin v'chesed v'rachamim Chayin v'chesed v'rachamim v'rachamim Sim Shalom Tova Uvracha Sim Shalom Tova Uvracha Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael Amecha Sim Shalom Tova Uvracha Sim Shalom Tova Uvracha Before we start our Torah service, I am going to take a moment and relocate the Zoom so that they might be able to see when I put the Torah over there. So give me 1 second. Full disclosure, I did not test this next location, so I don't know if it's gonna work, but let's just hope. So I'm gonna put these people right here. Let's see. Okay. All right. We continue on page 362 for the Torah service. Please rise. Ein kamocha va'Elohim Adonai ve'ein kema'asecha malchut ha'malchut kol olamim u'memshaltecha bechol dor v'dor Adonai melech Adonai malach Adonai Elok le'olam va'ed Adonai oz le'amo yitein Adonai yevarech et amo ha'shalom. Page 364. Ki mitzion teitzei Torah. Ki mitzion teitzei Torah. Udevar Adonai mirushalayim. 366. Baruch Shenatan Torah, Torah. Baruch Shenatan וההוד, כי כל בשמיים ובארץ, כי כל בשמיים ובארץ, לך אדוני הממלכה, ומנשא לכל ראש. Please be seated. Today's Torah portion, as I have mentioned, is Parashat Chayei Sarah. And I think most of you remember, if not all, from last night, the beginning of the Torah portion, which told the story of Sarah's death and Abraham purchasing the cave of Machpelah to bury her there. Will solve the problem of the question of whether or not she actually was buried there in a little bit. Today, I'm going to focus on a different part of the story. I just have to figure out what I'm doing with this thing. Hold on. Which is the story of when Abraham's servant goes to find a wife for Isaac and meets Rebekah at the well. And those of you in the room have the translation on the larger white piece of paper. Well, that kind of worked. Yes. We're going to join together in the blessings before and after the Torah on page 368. Baruch hu et Adonai hamvorach, Baruch Adonai hamvorach leolam va'ed, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et Torato, Baruch atah Adonai noten ha'torah. הנה אנוכי ניצב על עין המים, ובנות אנשי העיר יוצאות לשאוב מים. והיה הנערה אשר אומר אליה, התינא חדך ואשתה, ואמרה שתה, וגם גמליך אשקה. אותה הוכחת לעבדך ליצחק, ובעדה כי עשית חסד עם אדוני. ויהי הוא טרם קהילה לדבר, והנה רבקה יוצאת, אשר יולדה לבתואל בן מילכה, אשת נחור אחי אברהם, וחדה על שכמה. והנערה טובת מראה מאוד, בתולה, ואיש לא ידעה. ותרד העינה, ותמלא חדה, ותעל. וירוץ העבד לקראתה, ויאמר, הגמיעיני נא מעט מים מקדך. ותאמר שתה אדוני, ותמהר, ותאר כדה על ידיה, ותשקהו, ותאכל להשקותו, ותאמר, גם לגמליך אשאב, עד אם כילו לשתות. ותמהר, ותאר חדה אל השוקת, ותרוץ עוד אל הבאר לשאוב, ותשאב לכל גמליו. והאיש משתאה לה, מחריש לדעת, הצליח Vayishlach Adonai darko imlo. Vayehi ka'asher kilu hagmalim lishtot. Vayikach ha'ish nezem zahav beka mishkalo. Ushnei tzimidim al yadeha asara zahav mishkalam. Vayomer bat mi'at hagidina li hayesh bitavicha makom lanu lalin. Vatomer elav bat betuel anochi ben milka asher yolada lenachor. Vatomer elav gam teven gam mispo rav imanu gam makom lalun. Vayikod ha'ish vayishtachu ladonai. I just need to go grab my translation. Hold on. I know you can all read on your own, but I'll read it out loud anyway. What I find so interesting in this section is how every single thing Rebecca does is described. It doesn't gloss over any detail. It's every single aspect of her hospitality. Abraham's servant said, I am now standing by a well, and the daughters of the townspeople are coming out to draw water. If I ask a girl, please let me have a drink from your jar, and she replies, yes, certainly drink, and I will also water your camels, then she will be the one whom you have chosen for your servant Isaac. If there is such a girl, I will know that you have kept your promise to my master. He had just finished speaking when Rebekah appeared. She was the daughter of Betuel, son of Milcah, the wife of Abraham's brother Nahor. Her water jar was on her shoulder. Rebekah was beautiful, and she was untouched by any man. Rebekah went to the well and filled her jar and started back. At that moment, the servant rushed toward her and said, please, let me have a drink of water from your jar. Without hesitation, she replied, drink as much as you want. She quickly lowered the jar and gave him a drink. When he had finished drinking, she said, now let me bring some water for your camels so they too can drink. She quickly emptied her jar into the trough and ran to the well again to bring more water. She brought enough water for all of his camels. The man stood there silently staring at her, waiting and wondering if Adonai had miraculously made his journey successful. When the camels had finished drinking, Abraham's servant took out a gold ring weighing 1/2 shekel and 2 gold bracelets weighing 10 gold shekels and gave them to her. He then asked, whose daughter are you? Also, tell me whether there is any place in your father's house for us to spend the night. She replied, I am the daughter of Betuel, and my grandparents are Milcah and Nahor. Then she said, of course, we have plenty of straw and feed, as well as a place for your people to spend the night. The man bowed low and thanked Adonai. We will join together in the blessing after the Torah reading at the bottom of page 368. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torat emet, v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. I wonder if, since I surely cannot lift this Torah, I was thinking, since there's so few people here, maybe everybody would just like to come up and take a look at the Torah so that you have seen it, and then we can dress it together while you're all up here. So why don't you come on up? If you want to, you don't have to. It's so cozy. Vezot haTorah asher sam Moshe lifnei bnei Yisrael al pi Adonai biyad guys can have a seat. We're going to continue with our Haftarah portion. All right. Actually, before we continue with the Haftarah portion, I'm going to offer Misha Berach on page 371. So if anybody has any names of those who are in need of healing they would like to share, feel free to do so now. Misha Berach, Avotenu v'Imotenu Abraham, Yitzchak v'Yaakov, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel v'Leah, u'yivarech et hacholim ha'eleh. HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yimalei Rachamim Aleihem Lahachalimam Ularapotam Ulahachazikam V'yishlach Lahem Mehera Refuah Shlema Min HaShamayim Refuat HaNefesh Refuat HaGuf Hashtabagala Vizman Kariv V'nomar Amen. May the one who blessed our ancestors Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebekah, Rachel, and Leah, bless and heal those who are ill. May the blessed Holy One be filled with compassion for their health to be restored and their strength to be revived. May God swiftly send them a complete renewal of body and spirit, and let us say, Amen. The Haftarah blessings are on page 372. We will join together. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar b'nim tovim v'ratza v'divreihem hane'emarim be'emet Baruch atah Adonai Habocher Batorah Uv'Moshe Avdo Uv'Yisrael Amo Uv'Inviei Haemet V'Tzedek Va'adoniya ben Chagit mitnaseh lemor ani emloch vayas lo rechev ufarashim v'chamishim ish ratzim lefanav velo atzavo aviv miyamav lemor Madua kacha asita, vegam hu tov to'ar me'od, ve'oto yalada achare Avshalom. Vayihiu devarav, im Yoav ben Seruya, ve'im Evyatar hakohen, vayatzeru Acharei Adoniah B'tzadok HaKohen Uvnayahu ben Yehoyada V'Natan Hanavi V'Shim'i V'Rei V'Hagiborim Asher LeDavid Lo Hayu Im Adoniyahu Vayizbach Adoniyahu Tzon uvakar umri Im even hazochelet Asher eitzel ein rogel Vayikra Et kol echav b'nei hamelech Ulchol anshe Yehuda Avdei Hamelech Ve'et Natan Hanavi Uvnayahu Ve'et Hagiborim Ve'et Shlomo Achiv Lo Kara Ata Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, tzur kol haolamim, tzadik bechol hadorot, ha'el ha'ne'eman, ha'omer ve'oseh, ha'medaber u'mekayim, shekol devarav, emet v'tzedek, al ha'torah, ve'al ha'avodah, ve'al ha'nevi'im, ve'al yom ha'shabbat hazeh, shenatata lanu, Adonai Eloheinu, likdusha v'limnucha, lechavod u'letifaret, al hakol, Adonai Eloheinu, anachnu modim lach, u'mevarchim otach, yitbarach shimcha befi kol chai, tamid leolam va'ed, baruch ata Adonai, mekadesh hashabbat. Amen. So, as I mentioned before, I chose a different section of the Torah today, Torah portion today, than Rabbi David did last night. And I paired it with a specific part of the Haftarah, but it's not the traditional reason that these parshiot are paired. I just want to grab to make sure I'm telling you this correctly. Oh, here it is. Okay, so traditionally, the parallel between the Torah and the Haftarah portions for this Shabbat is that the Torah is describing things that happened in Abraham's old age, and the Haftarah is describing things that happened in King David's old age. And that's why they were chosen to be paired together. However, that's not the parallel I found this morning. I found a parallel between two specific characters that I found very meaningful, and I'm wondering if you have figured out what is the parallel that I found. I feel like I'm on a game show. What is the parallel that I found between Rebecca and Adoniah? Did anybody figure that out yet? That's okay if you didn't, because I'm going to tell you, but I'll give you a minute to think about it. Oh, I didn't read it to you. I'm sorry. Let's do that first. That would make more sense. Sorry. Okay, so the translation of the Haftarah. Now Adoniah, son of Haggit, exalted himself beyond his station, proclaiming, I will be king. He raised an escort of chariots, horsemen, and 50 men to run before him. He had been born after Absalom. Never in his life had his father rebuked him by saying, why did you act in such a way? Also, he was very handsome. He met with Joab, son of Zeruiah, and Ebiatar the priest, and they agreed to support him. But Zadok the priest, Ben-Yahu, son of Jehoiada, Natan the prophet, Shimei, friend of David, and the elite warriors did not side with Adoniah. Then Adoniah sacrificed sheep, oxen, and fatted calves at the stone of Zochelet near Ein Rogel. He invited all his brothers, the king's sons, and all the royal officials who were from Judah, but he did not invite Natan the prophet, or Ben-Yahu, or the elite warriors, or his brother Solomon. Probably would have been easier to answer my question if I had read you the translation. The opposite, yeah, he's the opposite of Rebecca. How is he the opposite of Rebecca?
Yeah, she was kind and generous and offered things quickly and without hesitation. And all he thought about was himself. He was,
Yeah.
Arrogant.
Arrogant, yes. Selfish.
He took sides. If you liked him, he ingratiated you. And if he didn't like you, he said.
Yeah. If you liked him, he was cool with you, and if you didn't like him, he would shut you out. I'm sure this taker, yeah. It reminds us, I'm sure, of several public figures we've had to live alongside over the last several years, but that's not the point. The most fascinating thing I found in these two examples is how they're both described as attractive. That was something important enough to include in the Torah and in the prophets, that Rebecca was beautiful and Adoniah was handsome. In other words, they were given the same toolkit, right? All kinds of research has been done that strangers are more likely to approach somebody on the street for help who is both attractive and tall. Most of us in here can't help with that. But, and it's true. I mean, it's true. If you have ever traveled somewhere, particularly with a man who's tall, people come up mysteriously and start just asking them random stuff that they would never know. And so Adoniah, I thought that was so meaningful that the sacred text included the fact that they were both blessed with being attractive. They both also had a similar station, although Adoniah, I think, was probably of a higher station than Rebecca, but she also did have, relation to Abraham. And so there was sort of that parallel too. And what was within her was gracious hospitality and attention to the details that comfort other people. And what was within him was all the stuff you guys said: arrogance, being unwelcoming to those who maybe didn't like him, taking his own power, not giving. So
Stating that he was going to be king, not one of his brothers.
that's right. Even though he was the youngest, like, where would he even get that idea? Right. Saying he was the best, he was going to be king. And so it's just an amazing illustration of how human beings can really go in any direction. We can't necessarily say, and certainly according to Jewish tradition, we can't say that either of them was born any differently, right? Each of us is born with a pure soul, and then we move in a direction over life. That pure soul is still within us, but all this other stuff gets heaped on top of it. So we have these two incredible, clear examples of humans who, given the same gifts, behaved so differently.
Nurture and nature.
Mm-hmm. I guess this would be nurture. I don't know.
Nurtured more. I don't think the king, he didn't pay a lot of attention. He didn't kind of say, no, you're not going to be king. He's kind of let him do what he wanted.
That's the interesting thing, that piece about that he had never been rebuked in his life, and no one had ever said, hey, why are you doing that, is super interesting. Because is it because we don't know why that is? We don't know if that's because he's the youngest and everyone was just overwhelmed and let him do whatever, or if maybe they really thought he was great. Maybe they were hands-off parents, and they just thought, oh, whatever my kid does. Reminds me of parents today who say, oh, they're just being kids. Hey, your kid hit my kid. Oh, they're just being kids.
Certainly didn't serve Joseph very well when his father favored him, same kind of situation.
Right. Yeah, I'm not even sure that the father shows favoritism here, but at least leaves him alone. Doesn't, he's never taught how to behave, is really what it's saying. So, I found it fascinating that we see these two examples of two seemingly very similar human beings who throughout their lives took on very different morals and values. And the true lesson in that is that can happen to any of us. Within each of us is all of this potential to be pulled in different directions and to develop different parts of ourselves. And it is our choice. Sometimes it feels that it's beyond us and that our circumstances dictate our behavior or our feelings towards the world. But in fact, this is a great example that maybe they don't have to. Maybe it really is within us if we want to change in a certain direction, if we want to think about ways we can increase how we are hospitable to others, we can always make that choice to go in that direction. Other thoughts about?
He was a bully.
He seems, yes.
Yeah, he was a bully.
Yeah.
She was kind. She made the effort to go get more water for the kids. She didn't settle and just take it. She went and got more and put it in the truck.
And nobody asked her to do that.
No, she did it on her own.
Right.
She was a kind person.
I think it's a.
She was, her life revolved about others, his life revolved about himself.
It's a pretty cool juxtaposition. Okay, we can continue to think on those character traits as we continue through our Shabbat. For now, we are going to return the Torah to the ark. I will invite you to rise, and we are going to stay standing all the way through Aleinu, just FYI. Yeah, hallelujah, et Shem Adonai, 374. Ki niskav shemo levado, hodo al eretz v'shamayim, vayarem teretz namo, tzricha lechol, asira, I'm just going to pause for 1 second to rearrange here. We're going to continue in a moment with the Mourner's Kaddish, but first a few quick announcements that somehow didn't make it onto the sheet last night. On Tuesday, November 9th, which is not this coming Tuesday, but the Tuesday after, we are having a Kol Zimra volunteer choir reunion and also welcoming new members here at the temple. So, to the choir, new members to the choir. So, if you or anybody you know might be interested in joining the choir, please spread the word that November 9th is the day to come and try it out. On November 10th is our next Gift of Mindfulness class, which will be in the lounge and on Zoom. And on November 11th, Thursday, Rabbi Kaufman's Basics of Judaism class. So lots of exciting, interesting, educational, mindful opportunities coming up at the temple. 7. Yeah. The choir usually meets at 7:30, but I accidentally said 7, and then it all accidentally got published that way. So that night is going to be at 7. Probably the regular time will be at 7:30. Oops. We'll survive. At this time in our service, we think of our loved ones who are no longer with us. We remember those in our congregational family whose yard sites fall on this Shabbat. Stanley R. Akers, Lester D. Alexander, Jack M. Barkan, Fern Burns, Milton Julian Bramson, Sam Davis, Elliot L. Davis, Elaine Flom, Ray Friedlander, Jack W. Goldstein, Esther Gottlieb, Nathan J. Greenberg, Sarah B. Harris, Isaac Hausman, Bess Kaufman Hirsch, Harold Eisen, Bruce Z. Jaffe, Lena R. Kaplan, Marjorie Kaplan, Fred R. Mannheim, Marion Mindell, Dora C. Mindell, Jacob Myers, Marilyn Packer, Marion Perlman, Steve Peskoff, Thelma Robbins, Blanche Rosenblatt, Jack Rothkin, Elliot Safran, J. Israel Seligman, Arlene Scharfman, Agatha F. Solomon, Howard B. Strasburger, and Morris Tobias. We are also especially mindful of those we have lost in recent days and weeks, for whom the period of Shloshim is still being observed. Joyce Sepkowitz, Robert Allen Barron, William Truhaft, and Leslie Greenblatt. Does anybody have any other names to say for Kaddish today? We rise together in remembrance of all these, as well as all those who have no one to say Kaddish for them, and join together in Kaddish Yatom, the Mourner's Kaddish, on page 598. Yit Gadal v'yit Kadash Shemei Rabbah, Ve'alma dibarach yirutei v'yamlich malchutei, B'chayechon v'yomechon u'v'chaye dechol Beit Yisrael, Ba'agala u'vizman kari v'imru Amen. Yehei Shemei Rabbah mevarach le'olam u'lalmei almaya, Yit barach v'yish tabach v'yit pa'ar v'yit romam v'yit naseh, V'yit hadar v'yit aleh v'yit halal shmei dekudsha brichu le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechamata da'amiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shalama rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mroma hu yaseh shalom. Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru amen. May the source of peace and peace to all who mourn and comfort to all who are bereaved. We say together, amen. Please be seated. We will close today with Oseh Shalom, which is the last few lines on page 598, after which we will gather outside the chapel for Kiddush and Motzi. Well, somewhere in this morning, my guitar pick is missing, so, oh well. Oh, say shalom bimroma. Uya say shalom aleinu. Ve'al kol Yisrael. Ve'imru amen. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom. Shalom aleinu ve'alko Yisrael. 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 Shabbat shalom. Thank you for attending the service.
I enjoyed it very much.
I love doing this service.
Me too.
Goodbye, Zoomers. We're gonna go do Kiddush.